Welcome to the Photography Opinion Podcast. We discuss all things photo, video, and camera related. I'm Ben Lucas.
And I'm Stuart Marlantis.
And this is Photo Op.
Welcome to the show. If you tuned in last week when we were talking about going to school or not, we teased right at the end of the episode that we were going to discuss working for free next time, and that is what we're here to do today. Dun, dun, dun. Working for free. It is a huge topic and a topic of much contention in the photography community, and today we're going to discuss it.
Yes. Should you work for free? The answer is no. Never. Absolutely not.
Don't do it.
we're of course kidding a little bit, but we're gonna get into the minutia of that today. So I want to start with kind of an order of events, kind of lay out the different kinds of working for free that we're talking about today. So we're gonna be talking about internships. Those are super popular. We're gonna be talking about TFP, which if you aren't familiar, is time for photos or time for prints. And that is when people get together and no one pays anybody and you just do a thing. We were talking about working for exposure, which... but I want to start all of this with a quote and kind of a philosophy from a hero of ours, Chase Jarvis, and then another added caveat to that that we have. So something that Chase says is when you are choosing to take on a job, you must have two out of these three things, otherwise you should say no. Those three things are money, portfolio, or relationships. So breaking that down a little bit, you gotta pay your bills. If the money is good, that's obviously a huge plus, right?
Otherwise, you'll die of exposure.
Oh, yes, you will. Your landlord does not take rent in exposure.
Nope.
The next one is portfolio. So if it's something that is really amazing that you would love to do, you want to have those Nike shoes and say that you actually had an ad campaign for them. You want to be able to hang out the side of a helicopter, which is the thing this guy did. You want to be able to do a shoot for Ferrari or Mercedes, another thing this guy did. Those are really cool things that you can say that you did that can bring in more work. So that is a legit reason. And the last thing is relationships. If you are working with really cool people or you're building a networking relationship, whether that is with, just kind of with people that are like-minded that you enjoy working with, that energize you, or whether that is someone like a creative director that you know, maybe this project's not great, but building that relationship with them, they have a huge funnel of stuff that they love working with you and will continue to send stuff to you. So if you have at least two of these three things, that is the yes, you should do it. If it's just money, but the project sucks and the people suck, it's not worth doing. If it's just the portfolio piece, but you're working for free and, it's not leading anywhere, that's not good. And then if you're doing something for a friend, but there's no money in it and the project sucks, well, you can choose to do that if you want to, but
probably not the best use of your time.
So yeah, that is the Chase Jarvis, triangle triumvirate of when you should choose to work for free, and then we're gonna kind of apply that to the different types of working that we're doing today. This is actually when we were going through show notes, we came up with another thing that we wanted to add on top of that, though. Stuart, I'm gonna let you take that one since you're more familiar with it.
Sure. So I would say that the fourth aspect that you should take into account when you're working for free is volunteering or charity or just something that makes you feel good, that you believe in the cause. I do a lot of volunteering. One of probably my most notable volunteer
the one that takes your
role
most time, at least.
Takes the most time is at the Seattle Aquarium, where I'm an aquarium diver, and I dive there for free. And I do shows and educate the public and do all that sort of stuff. And it's doing a lot of work for free, but the aquarium is their mission and goals are things that I believe in. I really like the experience, and just that volunteering experience in general there is worth doing for free, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many other volunteers like myself. So I would say that a slight caveat to Chase Jarvis's sound advice is, if it's a cause that you just truly believe in and that makes you feel good to do for free, I think that is valid too. But those are probably few and far between, and you should be very selective about them.
There are definitely a few things that I've done that are in that kind of more charity-based thing. There was I mentioned just a minute ago that I got to hang out the side of a helicopter. Well, that was for the Snohomish County Rescue Helicopter Team, and they lost their federal funding, and they needed a video to be able to play at their fundraiser to show people why this is important. So that was something that they were great people. It was a great cause, and I wanted to help. So there are times where just, if you believe in something and you want to do it, take that love, take that passion, throw it into that cause, do it. It is a labor of love. Don't expect it to get returns other than giving back. But there's something huge to giving back to your community. I know things like Help Portrait. And I know Peter Hurley's doing a new one to help people get back on their feet for business headshots for anyone who's lost their job in COVID and is looking for more work and you need a headshot. I will be doing something similar here in the near future. But so there are definitely ways to give back to those around you and your community and charity, and that is fantastic add-on. But besides that, we're kind of focusing on these other three for most of the conversation today.
Definitely. Definitely.
So yeah, we talked about internships, TFP, and working for exposure. So let's just take it from the top.
Internships, especially unpaid internships. This is a huge topic.
Makes me want to rip this luscious hair out. All right. I do want to start with, what is the definition of an internship? So technically, the legal definition of an internship is a company should be pouring more resources into the intern than they are getting as benefit from the work that intern does. So what this means is that if you're just doing like coffee runs, or if you're actually doing production work for them that they are billing clients for, then they need to be pouring more into you than you are giving to that company. So an employee, the whole point of an employee is the employee earns more for the company than the company pays the employee. So that way the company can make a profit and, hire more employees and stuff. An internship should not be that. Otherwise, they need to pay you.
Yes, exactly. And sadly, this continues to be a problem. There are a few paid internships out there. It's usually if you're an engineer or software developer or something like that. But in the arts, unpaid internships are
incredibly common.
Yeah,
the bane of my existence.
Yeah, they're just what everybody does, sadly. They can work out. So I will say that I did an unpaid internship that I think was worth my time, and that was working at a radio station. I was actually on air talent. Amazingly enough, they just gave me the shot to try that out, and they spent a lot of time teaching me and getting me up to speed on how to work in radio and giving me all these opportunities. And I did do real work, but I think it was at least net neutral, if not net negative, considering how many people they had to have help me throughout my time there. And so I feel like that's a great example of an internship that is done correctly, where there's a significant investment from the company or organization that you're working for. But
they
most
were
of them are not
you,
like that.
They were giving you access and resources, and they were paying employees to not do their jobs and teach you stuff.
Exactly. And that is in those kind of situations, that if you're doing an internship like that, it's still unfortunately you're not getting paid, because who doesn't like getting paid? But that's at least how it should be. That sadly is not the case for, I would say, probably the majority of unpaid internships.
Theoretically,
nowadays.
I personally think that, unpaid internships, it is very classist to, like, people can't afford to do unpaid things.
Yeah.
So that kind of restricts it more. So I hate it for that reason too.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think if you like can get college credit for this internship, then instead of paying a school to go to a class where they say, click open. All right, and now we're going to take the next 20 minutes to show you how a curves layer adjustment works. And then here's how you click the save button. Like, those, I've done those classes and they suck. If you can get an internship and get that, you know, college credit instead of this other thing, then unpaid internships, I think that's awesome. But instead of a paid production work, that's they should at least pay you something. But no, the whole point of an internship is you should be getting more out of it.
Yeah, and you're really getting an education for your time. I mean, I didn't know really anything about radio production, and I walked in there with no knowledge, and they brought me totally up to the point where I was comfortable doing entire radio productions for hours and hours at a time. And that's pretty valuable knowledge going forward into the future. So I was paying for that knowledge with my time instead of with money if I went to a program that taught radio production at a school instead. So it really is, if an ideal unpaid internship is still an exchange. You're not working for free. You're working in exchange for an education.
Here's a quote that I knew would come up at some point during this episode. So Christopher Nolan's Batman, the Joker. If you're good at something, never do it for free. Right?
Exactly.
We've all heard this. We've all probably said it a couple of times. There's a few things in that I want to break down. One, if you're good at something. If you're not, get good.
Yep.
Learn, practice, learn the things that you need, master that craft, get really good at it. And some of these opportunities that we're talking about are ways to get that. The second thing is never do it for free. You need to get something out of it. That something doesn't always need to be money.
Nope. Money, portfolio, relationships, or labor of love, right?
Yes. So as long as you're getting, you know, I like to say at least two of those things. So the money, portfolio, relationships, or our added labor of love, as long as you're getting some of those things out of it, then you're not free. You're getting something to compensate for the time, effort, energy, and resources you are putting into the thing you're doing.
Exactly.
So I think that covers internships. Let's talk about the next one here, TFP. So I've done a lot of TFP. I'm actually part of a few TFP groups. One of the two things that I will say about TFP groups: one, people grossly misunderstand what it actually is. And two, I get a lot of questions about when do you work for free, and when does a photographer pay a model, and when does a model pay a photographer? So here's this diagram. If you're listening to it on podcast only, you can also watch this with see these diagrams and our beautiful faces on my YouTube channel, but I will break it down for you. How you decide who pays what, or if you pay, is one, it's who goes to who, and two, it's who has more talent and experience. So if you are both beginners and neither of you know what you're doing, excellent TFP situation. If you are both intermediate or advanced, if you're both on the same level and you have a creative idea that will work for both of your portfolios, let's get together and help each other out. That is the essence of time for photos. Where it gets more complicated is when you are mixing experience levels. If you have an advanced photographer, hey, how you doing? And you have a beginner model, that advanced photographer is not, they have a portfolio already. They are not getting a lot out of working with a new model, but the model is getting a lot of value out of working with that experienced photographer. So that is where the model would pay the photographer to basically quick start their portfolio. Because if that model were to work with a far less experienced photographer for either less money or no money, they would not get the same quality as quickly as they would otherwise. Likewise, if you are a new photographer and you have no idea what you're doing, and you're like, you know what? I just need to work with a model who knows what they're doing so I can focus on camera and lighting and the other stuff that's not modeling, because that's not my forte. I'm not there yet. Hire a model. Let them do their thing and let them elevate your photos. So kind of whoever is more experienced is the person who gets paid, is kind of the shorthand of that. But the other thing too is who comes to who. So I, as a photographer, there are a few things that my portfolio lacks. And if I have the time, money, and resources to go find that, so one of the things that my portfolio is lacking, specifically like in my boudoir portfolio, is a dark-skinned models. So there is something about being able to shoot a light-skinned person and a dark-skinned person differently, because their skin looks different on camera, and a lot of photographers have no idea how to light models with darker skin. So if you don't show that, then a client who has darker skin will say, well, I've had bad photos taken of me. You don't have any examples of people who look like me in your portfolio. I don't trust that you can take those photos and make me look good.
Yep.
So if your portfolio is lacking that, then I would go out and I would say, hey, my boudoir portfolio needs some darker skinned models. I would hire those models because that's the thing I need. It's not necessarily a thing they need, even if I'm more experienced. Likewise, if a model needs headshots, it doesn't matter how good of a model they are, they got a haircut, they got something, and they look different now, they need new headshots. Well, a photographer who already has a bunch of headshots, they need to pay that photographer for headshots, because you're the one who has the need. So half of the equation is who is more experienced, the other half of the equation is who has the need, and are both parties getting something out of it.
Mm-hmm. For more on TFP-related discussions, you should check out episode 10, How to Collaborate.
Yes.
That'll help you. That'll help you navigate some of these ideas and situations around collaborating with somebody who you have less, equal, or more experience with, and how to get something, how to set it up so that both parties get something, whether that's money or something for their portfolio or a relationship.
Yes. The times that I see TFP fail are when people... Two times I see it fail. One is when people undervalue themselves. A photographer who has a huge stable of work, they have great photos, they do excellent work, but they tell themselves, I'm not really that good, I can't really charge people yet, I should keep practicing. That is a time where it's like, okay, if you already have a job and you don't need the money and you just kind of love doing it, like, cool. But if your goal is to become a full-time photographer, you got to take off the training wheels and you have to believe in yourself and tell people, hey, I have work. It's like people in the dating scene and just like, I just want to be friends. I have enough friends. I'm good. Thank you. So there's that. The other time I see it fail is when people misunderstand the fundamental idea of what this arrangement is supposed to be for. So I see that most in like, hey, me and my boyfriend, we're pretty good looking, so anyone want to take couples pictures of us in exchange for your portfolio? No, that's not time for prints. That's working for exposure, which let's talk about now.
Yeah. Oh boy, working for exposure. Probably the most repeated phrase in the industry right now, and probably has been that way for a number of years.
I get that email at least once a week.
Yeah, it's not convincing, let's put it that way.
So generally, it comes from, hi, I am some type of influencer, whether it's an Instagram influencer or a big company with deep pockets who just is cheap and doesn't want to pay you. And by doing this free work for me, you will have a platform of tons of people that will see your work. Well, if those people are interested in buying shoes, not buying photography, then my photography of your shoes will do absolutely nothing.
Pretty much. You need to, especially with the big companies, they have a marketing budget, so don't let them get away with not paying you. Don't let them pocket that.
The artist dies of exposure. You cannot pay your rent in exposure.
No.
So I would say, when we talked about the Chase Jarvis money portfolio relationships, some people may misconstrue exposure for relationship.
Yep. Yeah, some people genuinely, it doesn't come from malice or they're trying to be cheap. Some people genuinely think, oh, well, I mean, I'm providing you an audience. That's building a relationship. You're getting access to my audience or the audience of a company, so to speak. But that audience is really not going to convert as well as you think, if at all.
Is that your audience? So I had a blogger in Australia tell me like, hey, I have a huge following, I would love to do your cosplay photo booth on my blog and just like do that. And I was sitting here thinking like, so you're getting the clicks and ad revenue and whatever from my photography, and it is a Comic-Con photo booth in Seattle, Washington. It basically ranges from Seattle to Portland. I have absolutely no audience in Australia. That like, they're not gonna, if you're listening to this in Australia, hi, welcome, thanks, I appreciate it. But no, what I mean is like, for that particular product, I literally get no value out of spreading that product unless you can physically be at the convention I'm at, which is here.
Or
so
if somebody pays
I have
you
zero crossover audience with this random blogger.
Yeah, or if somebody pays you big money to fly to Australia and work at a convention there.
I mean, that'd be dope, but I doubt it.
Yeah, which would be cool, but that seems like a remote possibility. Yeah. So this whole question of working for exposure, as you said earlier, exposure only really
Let's roll
works.
that back 10 seconds.
Sorry. So this whole question of working for exposure, as you said earlier, exposure only works when your audiences are one and the same, which is very rare. I mean, generally people are going after some sort of business niche, some sort of audience that they're targeting. And when is your audience, the people that you're trying to get money out of, ever the exact same as the audience of somebody who's approaching you to work for exposure? I have been approached to work for exposure many times. Literally never once have our audiences actually been one and the same.
When I was young and stupid, I thought, great, exposure. I would love to get myself in front of more people. And it has worked 0 times.
Yep. 0 times.
So I think the key difference is if someone approaches you and says, hey boy, do I have an opportunity for you. Let's work for exposure. Run away very quickly. The difference is reverse that role. So you approach a company and you say, hey, you have a huge following that I would benefit from. I would love to do this for you. The difference is that it's not some rando. It is someone that you have very specifically researched and targeted as a good fit for you.
Yep. Yeah, that would be the only time that working for exposure
and then they'll
would be...
say like, yeah, you can do free work. Sounds great.
Yeah, that would be the only time that it would really be appropriate. If you've run the numbers, if you've done the research, if the audience of this particular person or company really is who you're trying to target, and you think you will get conversions out of that, then at least paid conversions, then yeah, maybe you approaching them and working for exposure to a very limited degree is appropriate. But that doesn't always work out, because oftentimes if you do free work for somebody and they refer you to somebody else, whether that's their buddies or whether that's their audience, and they say, hey, this person did great work for me, that doesn't generally convert to paid work. It often is more of the same.
Oh, for sure. Let's definitely talk about conversions and referrals for a second before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
The best example I have is weddings, since I shoot so many of them. So when I have a very low budget pain in the butt wedding client who they want an 8-hour day, but they are only willing to pay for 3. So they try and cram an entire wedding day into that one little thing. And then it turns out to a chaotic mess. And those clients actually end up being like the most demanding, like retouching wise and change wise. Those type of clients are the reason why my contract now reads you get one set of revisions after your album for free. After that, you have to pay every time you want revisions. Those clients will refer like clients. So yeah, maybe you do get a lot of referrals, but you're going to get a lot of low budget, pain in the butt people that want the world from you. And that is going to cause the most stress in your life and in your business. Whereas my higher paying clients, who just say, I love you and your art, make me look gorgeous, go. They're the most low maintenance, wonderful people in the world and the people I love working with. And they have friends like themselves. So when they refer people, they are referring people like themselves.
Exactly.
So when you work for free for someone, you will become known as the guy who works for free, and all of those referrals will come to you also expecting you to work for free.
Because you worked for free for them, so why won't you work for free for me?
Correct.
Yeah. Best to just avoid setting that precedent and essentially never working for free, never working for exposure at all. Just bad news.
I actually do have another little bonus tip to add on top of that one.
Definitely.
People don't appreciate what they get for free.
That's very true.
Something that I've actually done whenever I work for family, and I'm not going to charge them whenever. When I say family, I mean like your parents. If your mom did 36 hours of labor, do free photos for your mom. Stop being a jerk.
Another time where it's appropriate to work for free.
Or anyone who you owe a kidney to. Like these are the people you work for free. Everyone else, no, they can pay your full rate.
Yep.
But whenever I do that, or whenever I do charity work as well, I will include an invoice. And I will say, this is the amount of work that I have done for you. This is the actual value that has been provided. Your total due is still 0. But I throw in that invoice to show them that there was value in that work, because before I started doing that, they don't care.
Or if they don't care, they just, it might not be that they don't care, but they might just not know. So this is a great thing to do potentially for even some of like the work you're doing as sort of a volunteer, not like a diver like I am, but doing this kind of billable work as a volunteer for something that you really believe in, this really helps people to give them context for what your labor costs, what the service you're providing costs. Oftentimes, providing them with an invoice like this not only helps them appreciate what they're getting for free, but that's something that they can run up the chain and say, hey, maybe we should have a budget for this in the future. Or, hey, look at the value that we're getting out of the service. This is worth paying for. Or all sorts of different things. At the very least, they can go to higher levels in their organization and talk about what a great thing was done and how much this is helpful and how much they saved as a result of your very kind contributions. Maybe you get something named after you, a brick or something. Who knows? But at the very least, they're appreciating more what they're getting for free with a little bit of context. Otherwise, they don't know, and they almost certainly have no context in their own lives to understand that kind of value. So it's a good thing to provide it to them.
Yeah, back when I was in college, I got, I think it was like a $40 concert ticket or something in exchange for a bunch of work I did for this organization. But I did maybe about $1,000 worth of work, and they got mad at me that I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain. And this is why you don't do stuff without a contract, and you don't do stuff for free. And if you do something for free, you tell them what you're worth. Yeah, that was the worst, man.
Yeah. And also think about it as maybe helping other people in the industry down the line. Like anytime you work for free, you run the risk of devaluing your work, but also devaluing the work of the industry you're in. So providing that context when you do work for free helps retain that value in the public consciousness and helps others down the road to be appreciated as well.
I think more than just devaluing, though, it comes down to educating the clients. Because if someone doesn't they say, like, what's your event photography budget? And they're like, I don't know, like $100. And you're like, hard pass.
Yeah.
You know?
No thanks.
But the thing is, they had a huge budget for this event. They just had no idea what to put towards photography, so they guessed. So part of that is, if you just take it, then they now have been educated to say that is the proper amount of budget to put towards photography for the next photographer.
At least you're giving them the opportunity to make that choice. Like, maybe they're still going to be cheap and they're not going to put that budget aside, but you'd be surprised. There are some good people out there who don't realize, and in the future, after they've been provided that information and been educated, there are people that genuinely are like, wow, we really do need to put a budget toward this in the future. This is worth paying for. And if you don't educate them, that will never happen, regardless of their personal thoughts on the matter.
I have another bonus tip. I'm full of bonus tips today.
Bonuses.
If you agree to be the $50 photographer, then you will never be the $5,000 photographer. When they have a budget for $5,000, they will not hire you. They already know they got you for $50. They will go with someone else who charges $5,000 and values themselves as such. So it is better to say no to these lowball bad offers, know your value, and be able to close those high value clients who actually love, adore your work, and value you the way you value you.
Yeah, there's a concept called price anchoring, which basically means, like, you set the expectations for the client based off of your price. And oftentimes you'll see 3 price tiers for many things, whether this is products or services, and there'll be a really high price tier, a medium price tier, and a low price tier. And the high price tier generally exists as an anchor to show, oh, well, hopefully people will spring for that high price tier. But if they don't, then the medium price tier, or even the low price tier, which might still be very lucrative, looks a lot more reasonable to pay for as a result of that price anchoring by the high price tier. So if you price anchor yourself as a $50 photographer, you'll never get over that. You'll never be able to reset that anchor that you have put there with the client.
Not for that client.
Well, at least, not for that client.
Yeah.
It's a lesson to learn and move forward on in that case, because that client is never going to go back. But for future clients, you need to set those appropriate prices so that you don't mess things up for yourself later down the road.
Yeah, so one of the things that we talked about in this episode is that the client has no idea what photography costs or why you are so expensive. So part of that is being able to educate them about the value they're getting, which I think this would be a great topic for our next episode. Why is photography expensive? Also, why do they absolutely not care? So how should you educate them in a way that they should care and value you about it?
It's not always malice. Sometimes it's just a question of education. So yeah, let's definitely talk about why photography is expensive next episode.
If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@photo-op.show.
Watch us on Ben's YouTube channel at NomCreative.
As in Om Nom Nom.
Share this with a friend, and you can listen to Photo Op anywhere podcasts are sold.
Or download it. 'Cause it's free.